Hello, welcome back to the channel. Now, details of Ruto's meeting with Museveni have been leaked, according to the Daily Monitor. And some of the details that have been leaked, they are quite interesting, is the fact that Ruto is backing Museveni to become the president of the East African Federation. Now, that is interesting because the East African Federation is this utopical, is the idea that East Africa should become one as a country. And they are talking about countries like Sudan, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, as well as Uganda, to have some sort of a federation, come together as one, and then make Museveni make Museveni the leader of the East African Federation. Now, I don't know what that means, according to Ruto. I think the idea is that Museveni would have to leave power, and then he becomes the president of the East African Federation. Now, two things for me, for anyone who speaks about the East African Federation in the times that we live in today, especially when you want to make Museveni as the president. Number one, you're unserious. Number two, you are either a con or a scam. Now, I haven't been so much of a Ruto, like I didn't know Ruto so well, but I'm starting to believe that this guy is a scam. He's a scam, and he is a person that is really, really not good for, he's not a good guy. He might be good in Kenya, I don't know, but regionally, he's not really a good guy. I don't think he's a good guy for us. Now, in the secrets that leaked, we also saw that Kenya, this gentleman known as Ruto, he has some businesses in Uganda. And it is also, from my own understanding, is that Ruto is the one in charge of Museveni's businesses in Kenya. So if you're Kenyan and you see Ruto getting money here and there, and he has the businesses here and there he's running, trust me, Museveni must have a hand in them. Because the relationship that these two are having, they are really, the relationship is quite, very, very concerning for anyone who is quite democratic in the region, in one way or the other. Now, this gentleman known as Ruto, we know very well that he wants to stand for president come 2022. And his biggest contender, whatever competitor, I think it's likely that it will be William Ruto. This gentleman is the deputy president in Kenya, what we call vice president in Uganda. He's the vice president to Uhuru Kenyatta. And Uhuru Kenyatta looks that he is not going to back him for his presidential ambitions. And this gentleman has been attacking Uhuru left, right, and center. And yet Uhuru had brought him closer. Now, Uhuru have this agreement known as the BBI project, or the I think it's called the Build Bridges Initiative, that they have with Raila Odinga and all this kind of stuff. Now, this created a very big rift because Ruto, being vice president, he thought that he was the next in line. But then they fell out with his boss, and as a matter of fact, Ruto has been throwing punches to the boss, as well as the boss has been trying to, I don't think he has been trying to throw back. He's been a wee bit quiet. Now, for Ruto supporters in Kenya, this is really interesting because we have some Ruto supporters in Kenya that also support democracy in Uganda. That is where your leader has lost the mark, because this shows exactly, because we have a saying in Africa that show me your friends and I will show you who you are, or show me the people you tag along with, and I will tell you the kind of person you are. So if you tag along with people like Museveni, who are murderers, who just killed people, and you come to Uganda and tell the Ugandan people that this is the right person for Uganda, it should be the right person you vote. On the other hand, you also say that this is the person that should be the president of the East African Federation. Then your East African Federation, two things. You say that it's scam, or it is something that you're using as an opportunity in order to scam or to lie to the people of Kenya. The other interesting factor is the fact that Ruto is not popular in Uganda. He's not that kind of person who visits Uganda and people in Uganda get charged. If Ruto is arrested in Kenya, no, there are no Ugandans who will come out on the streets to protest against the arrest of Ruto, which is really interesting. Because when at least Bobby Wine was arrested in Uganda, the people in Kenya stood, with us. Now, I would like, as a person who believes in the rule of law, I condemn any sort of arbitrary arrest or any sort of arrest that are done on anyone, as a result of trumped-up charges and things of that sort. But what I'm trying to discuss here is the politics that, for Ruto, is not a popular person, or is not a person that is really, is really popular in the region because of his alignment with Museveni. Everyone, that is why you see very many leaders are going away from Museveni. They don't want to get any close to him, because when you get close to Museveni, your career has been killed globally, regionally, continent-wise, in one way or the other. That's why you see Magufuli was not a fan of Museveni. The Kagames and maybe this Indishimiye of Burundi, but even Uhuru Kenyatta is no longer a fan, as well as this gentleman, Salva Kiir. Now, that is the problem with Museveni. He is isolated. Now, according to this article, he said that it is Museveni that invited Ruto, and it is not Ruto that brought himself to Kampala. Whatever the case is, these two, they are in cahoots together. Now, what is interesting is that this meeting tells us the key points on why Ruto was in Uganda. Ruto is cash-strapped. He needs permission from his boss, Museveni, who owns Ruto's businesses in Nairobi, whatever, in Kenya, to get permission to get money from Museveni's businesses and use that money to run his campaign. And when he becomes president, he will pay Museveni back. We also understand that he's in Uganda to solicit funding from Museveni to finance his campaign. Now, I don't know what the Kenyan law says about a foreign government funding someone for presidential ambitions, or what you would call political interference, because those are the same cases that Trump was facing with the Russian intervention. Now, what is interesting with Ruto is the fact that a couple of years ago still, he came and solicited more money from Museveni, amounting to $100,000 under the pretext that they are going to build the William Ruto Institute of Leadership. The William Ruto Institute of Leadership came out of the blue. Of all the Kenyans this was really I don't say that William Ruto does not deserve an institution in Uganda. But what is this? What is special about William Ruto that he did in Uganda? This was a scam, just like the COVID vaccine facility is a scam. The reason as to why Ruto had come to Uganda, number one, either they are going to do two things, because now the government has said that, look here, and I'm going to make a video about that, how Museveni is planning to finance Ruto's presidential campaign through the day group, the vaccine facility. Because I'm going to make a video about that. But let us go back to the East African Federation. Now, this is what Ruto... Okay, let us go here and say. Kenya's deputy, William Ruto, recent trip to Uganda has brought into focus the close ties he enjoys with Museveni. The deputy president is cultivating deep political and commercial ties in one of Kenya's biggest trading partners, and he is reputed to have commercial interest in Uganda. Coming at the time he has strained his eyes on succeeding his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta, the trip was meant to achieve many things at a go. They include seeking Museveni's support for 2020, fundraising, and looking after his businesses in the country. So all of a sudden, Ruto has always been a puppet for Museveni. Or Museveni is a puppet for Ruto. So when they say that he's seeking Museveni's support for 2022, fundraising and looking after Museveni's businesses and looking after his businesses in the country. Like they say that Ruto has businesses in Uganda. That's really funny. Those are Museveni's businesses, definitely. But it is Ruto who is the face of these businesses. Because we know each and any business, you can easily see when a business has the hallmarks of Museveni markings around it. So these businesses, I believe, they're even being used to launder, or their shell companies used to launder money. Does Ruto pay taxes? What sort of businesses does he have? How come they are not mentioned? Okay, they say petrol stations, this and that. But do you know the businesses? These are money laundering schemes. A close ally of the deputy president told the Sunday Nation that he also sought Mr. Museveni's intervention to patch up things with Mr. Kenyatta. The DP believes that despite the strained relationship with his boss, the window of reuniting ahead of the next election remains open. Now, being an elder statesman, maybe Uhuru can listen to him and retrace his steps. A source based at Karen's office said that Museveni, given he has been in power for almost 4 decades, holds a lot of sway in the region's politics. In the talks, Mr. Museveni was concerned about Deputy President's brand of politics, which he often takes on his boss. Head on, may end up working against the state house ambition. The older statesman, who is said to support a Ruto presidency, reportedly asked him to adopt a less confrontational method in pursuit of votes. I'll not go to that. Let me go to this. I'll make a video about that. Mr. Ruto, on the other hand, hinted at backing Museveni to establish and assume the leadership of the East African Federation. You owe us a date, quote, before you retire, and if possible in the next 2 or 3 years. Is that a hint? That Museveni wants to retire and hand over power? Or is he going to orchestrate his own coup? Oh, is he going to... This is really interesting. You owe us a date. Before you retire, if possible in the next 2 or 3 years, that Museveni is going to retire in the next 2 or 3 years, you owe us the fruition of the East African Federation. He said at Matuga in Wakiso district, some 20 kilometers north of the Kampala CDB along Kampala-Juba Highway, where Day Pharma Limited, a multi-billion pharmaceutical, drugs and mRNA vaccine manufacturing facility will be set up. So if Ruto backs Museveni as Museveni is colloquially referred to in Uganda, to go to the East African Federation chief, what does Deputy President want in return? Well, now, let me first concentrate on this issue of East African Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, East African Federation is a pipe dream, especially when we still have people like Museveni in power, when you still have Kagame who has served for a long time, and, okay, there are some new kids on the block who have come in, the likes of, what's his name? Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta. Then you have power changing in Tanzania. That is from Al-Hassan Mwinyi, Jakaya Chikwete, Magufuli Pombe, and then Samia Suluhu. Now, it is only in Rwanda that we see that Rwanda has been there for 20 years. Then now we are seeing South Sudan is also becoming more autocratic rather than democratic. And then we also see Burundi, after the downfall of the death of this gentleman known as Nkurunziza, who had also become another autocrat. Now this gentleman known as Ndishimiye also was brought into power by Burundi, by the previous government of that gentleman known as, what's his name? Nkurunziza, because Nkurunziza orchestrated Ndishimiye's presidency in order to succeed him, whereby they rigged the election and played all that kind of stuff and then announced him as the president. Now, whereas Ndishimiye has been there for 5 years, for these years, let us see what he will do in the next 5 years. Will he be able to put Burundi on the right course in a democratic and a country that is under the rule of law? Whereas the people of Burundi might have forgiven him for now, even though he stole the election, but because Burundi is also a very fragile state. It's one of those countries in the East African region that is really, really, really fragile, that is susceptible to coups in one way or the other. The previous president survived a coup. I think it's the country that has had the most presidents in the East African region. Yes, Burundi. So for Rwanda, it has only had 3 presidents. That is Kayibanda, this gentleman known as Juvenal Habyarimana, and then you have Kagame. It is 3 presidents. So Kagame now he's like what his mandate goes up to. He's changed the constitution, I think. Did he up to 2030 or something of that sort? And then he said he will give up. And then you have Southern Sudan. It is total chaos there, like real chaos. I think this last week they celebrated 10 years of their independence anniversary. But surely when you look at South Sudan, there is nothing to celebrate. There is nothing to celebrate. But do you know what is interesting about all these countries? Because where Museveni has interfered the most, there is less democracy. And my brothers and sisters in Kenya, if you want Museveni to interfere in your country, look, you are going to go back in those days of Moi. And worse. When you see a hand of Museveni in your politics, when you see your political leaders coming to seek support from Museveni, it is going to end up like South Sudan. It is going to end up like Nkurunziza, Burundi. It is going to end up like Rwanda. Now, Rwanda is really interesting because Rwanda is a country that should have been, the only thing we need in East Africa is to have a guarantee that power is going to change without shedding blood. Power is going to change without breaking any rules, the rule of law. Power is going to change, whereas the economy, without economies getting up, without people running up and down and thinking that, look here, we are supposed to run to neighboring countries. Every country, now look at a country like Congo. Museveni has interfered there the most. And what is happening today in Congo, whereas now Congo has succeeded in changing governments here and there, but still they are, I'm seeing Tshisekedi rubbing shoulders again. So Tshisekedi is likely to get the Museveni disease of autocracy and dictatorship, of trying to keep themselves in power. And then they put this kind of thing whereby who can rule East Africa the longest. Because if Ruto is attracted to Museveni's kind of politics that is dictatorial and killing his own citizens, then Ruto wants the wrong things for East Africa. He's not a person who is qualified to be... how can you recommend people to have Museveni as the East African Federation person? That Museveni is the one with the idea of the East African Federation and so he should become the leader. Come on. Museveni collapsed the federation himself because of his interventions in different countries. Today now he doesn't deal with his former friend, Kagame. They are at loggerheads. They fell out. And now he is trying to get allies in order to isolate Kagame and do this kind. This is really, it is a total mess. So Kagame is also against Museveni, saying Museveni is interfering in my politics, and Museveni is saying Kagame is interfering in my politics. The only person who has managed to survive, people who have managed to survive Museveni and who have not tolerated his interventions and his sort of poking into issues that do not concern him, it is Tanzania. And that's why Tanzania has been able to change power peacefully from one president to another. Even after a death of a president, Tanzania managed to hand over power to a different person, a lady called Samia Suluhu. So Museveni was trying to replicate the Tanzanian thing by electing a vice president who is a lady. So do you think that if... okay, now this is what I see. If at all Mr. Ruto's thing is to come to fruition, as he says. Number one, Ruto wins the presidency in Kenya, hypothetically speaking. Ruto takes the presidency in Kenya. When he takes the presidency, he aligns with Museveni. Which other ally will they get there? I think they will get Ndishimiye as well. Now, Ruto and Ndishimiye will agree that let Museveni become the leader of the East African Federation. Now, this is just an hypothesis, because I don't see anywhere Tanzania buying the idea that Museveni should be the head of the East African Federation. Tanzania will not, because the power blockers in Tanzania, they do not want to look, they don't want to be, under the grip of a person like Museveni. We also understand that the previous president, Magufuli, was anti-Ruto. He was more of a pro-Odinga kind of person. He was supporting Odinga, like openly. He was anti-Ruto. And let me tell you the other thing. If Ruto doesn't win the presidency, it means Museveni's ambitions of East African Federation is back to square one. Because look here, Uganda, Kenya is our biggest trade partner in the region, right? And so, being our biggest trade partner, Museveni even refused to give them the pipeline because he knew that Ruto had no chance, and he saw like Odinga is the one who is going to win, and he was afraid that if Odinga takes the presidency and he gives him the pipeline, Odinga might switch off the taps, he might block his goods and crumble the Ugandan economy. So that's what Museveni is afraid of. And now he has realized that, look, okay, let's see. Ruto, do you really have a chance? So now Ruto wants Museveni to intervene. But now, sticking on the issue of the East African Federation. So what happens to Uganda if at all Museveni becomes the head of the East African Federation, the president? Well, what happens is very simple. This guy is not going to leave. He wants to die on power. He's not. You think that he's going to become, unless if the East African Federation writes a constitution and says the president of the federation is not supposed to be the president of... look here. The Ugandan economy has been driven into a sewer by this guy. And now you want to put him in charge of a federation? He has failed to manage 45 million people. What's the population of the entire East Africa? Are we close to 200 million? So you want to give him 200 million? Really? Look here. I am really, really for unity. I am really, really, really for federation. But trust me, if you are putting a federation in charge of Museveni, I'm not going to be part of that. Because he has failed to manage his own household. I don't want Museveni ordering more deaths in Kenya. I don't want Museveni propping up more dictators in Sudan as well as Tanzania. I don't want these things to happen to my fellow brethren in this East African region. I wish good for the people of East Africa. And let me tell you, the people of East Africa and my friends in Kenya, what this gentleman, Ruto, is proposing for the region is disastrous, is calamitous. People are going to be killed with impunity. Corruption is going to happen. This gentleman has stolen our country. Everything, nothing works. Today he opens the factory. As soon as he leaves, as soon as his last step walks out of that particular factory, it closes down. If you look at his monetary policies as well as his so-called Musevenomics, all COVID funds have been stolen. And now you want to give him the East African Federation to steal more? What is wrong with this gentleman, Ruto? Why don't you concentrate on your ugali and nyama choma? You just go eat your nyama choma, enjoy your nyama choma with kachumbari. That is what you are good at. And maybe running Museveni's businesses in Kenya. But you're not going to create an outfit of criminals that is going to subjugate the people of East Africa. We have suffered enough. The people of South Sudan have suffered enough. They are going through suffering. The people of Rwanda have suffered enough. They are going through suffering. The people of Burundi have suffered enough. We have gone through enough suffering. The people of Uganda have suffered enough. And it is really enough. We are fed up. If that is what you wish for Kenya, you get Yoweri Museveni, take him to Kenya and let him rule there. But I tell you, my brothers and sisters in Kenya, we have tested this thing for the past 35 years. Some of us have even been born in this thing. We have been born in it. Our citizenship is being revoked. Museveni now has a right to say that you are no longer Ugandan. He decides who is Ugandan and who is not. He gives and takes life. That is who he has become now. That's the gentleman you want to... That is the gentleman Ruto is backing for the East African Federation president, whatever. Really? Ruto, you go eat your ugali and nyama choma. And that is one of my favorite dishes, by the way. I have no... Because you just eat food, because that is what you're good at. Because internationally, you have been isolated. No other African country wants to host Ruto. Only Museveni. That's why you see he's rotating around Museveni. And he wants Museveni to talk to Samia Suluhu to convince her about the federation, blah, 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 blah. But why doesn't Ruto go to Kagame? And how are you going to play that part of Kagame when these two are at loggerheads? So funny. Ruto, he's nowhere to be seen. He has a cloud of East African, the ICC is looking for him. Like the ICC still has crimes to answer for. just gentlemen, just go. I mean, stop your crazy things, antics that you're bringing to Ugandans. Stop acting like you are the one who understands for Ugandans everything. No African leader is supporting you. If at all Ruto is very popular, how come people who are in the struggle in Africa, they have all walked away from this guy? You won't see Marema talking about Ruto. You won't see these other people talking about Ruto. They will not talk about him. Because they know this guy has nefarious and sinister ambitions and sinister things for Africa as well as East Africa. Well, he might be good for Kenya. I don't know about that. I don't want to enter into Kenyan politics. But from the look of things, continental-wise as well as regional-wise, this guy is not good at all. He's not good. I'm not happy, especially with this guy. He's a crook. This gentleman is a crook. I've now become to believe. I had given him a benefit of doubt. But Ruto is a crook. Okay, let us meet in the next episode. But Museveni for president of East Africa, 85 years old? Really? Not even the Burundians could make this gentleman president. He wouldn't even qualify to become an LC chairman in Kenya. But you want to make him the head of the East African Federation? He has failed to manage a budget of 45 trillion Ugandan shillings. All the money is being spent, eaten, and stolen. Nepotism is on the rise. So, if you are a Muslim living in Kenya or these other countries, you are dead. Because Museveni's first hate for any type of people, it is the Muslims. Then afterwards, he's a staunch tribalist. Not a tribalist in a good way, but a tribalist who is nepotalistic, favors his own, is a tribalist, and he's a nepotism, right? That word, neptoptic, that thing. Like he chooses people from his own family. Trust me, Museveni is not a person who is good at working in situations that are normal and peaceful. He always wants situations that are abnormal and unpeaceful. Ruto, please go enjoy your skuma wiki and wugari and start scratching your chin. It's a good meal. Go just enjoy your food and leave us alone. Okay? Leave East Africa alone. Just leave East Africa alone. Leave it out of your mafioso kind of things. I'm really going to be hard on Ruto. We are not going to accept this. As East Africans, we should stand up and call for the arrest of this crook because he is interfering in the East African affairs. And he has no right. Because the things he's doing, they are on his own his own prerogative, like his own thing. You know. Okay, guys. Have a good one.